Previously, an office worker passed away after being caught up in a tragedy involving a police officer and a burglar. He cried in agony, and his cries reached God. He was then reborn in a magical world as a healer with a blessing from God. He joined a healer guild to become stronger and began training with a seasoned adventurer named Broad to hone his martial arts skills. Broad, touched by Lucille's kind heart, expresses his belief that the world would be significantly better if there were more healers with the same dedication as Lucille. Lucille, although unsure of the implications of Broad's words, senses the prospect of beginning a fresh chapter in this world. Broad tells Lucille that he cannot leave until his training is complete. The notion scares Lucille, but he reluctantly agrees. Unable to think of a place to gain the necessary knowledge, they settle on a monthly renewal contract, a scheme hatched by Broad to demonstrate to Lucille how indispensable he truly is. Broad envisions a month of foundational work with Lucille, after which, he would begin serious training. Lucille expresses his concerns about the guildmaster's potential disapproval of Broad's unilateral decision. However, Broad, full of confidence, assures him that he possesses enough authority for such arrangements. Grateful, Lucille thanks his special monster skill, Luck Sensei. He understands that this arrangement will not only enhance his martial skills, but will also provide him with accommodation, clothing, and employment. After stepping outside for a refreshing cold shower, Broad supplies Lucille with a fresh set of clothes and hastens him to the cafeteria. Confused about how to handle his dirty laundry, Lucille encounters Nana Ella, who thanks him for his healing services to the adventurers. She kindly offers to take care of his laundry, an offer which he initially attempts to reject. A misunderstanding arises, with Nana Ella presuming that Lucille is reluctant to let a beast folk handle his clothing. Lucille swiftly corrects the misconception, explaining his discomfort at the thought of a beautiful girl doing his laundry. She blushes at his words, takes the clothes from him, promising to return them clean the next day. Lucille surrenders, assuring her that he would gladly assist if she needed help in the future. Nana Ella departs with a radiant smile, urging Lucille to join Broad, who is waiting for him. Entering the cafeteria, Lucille finds Broad seated before an enormous feast. He is baffled by the amount of food, but Broad merely instructs Lucille to consume everything. Astonished, Lucille is still encouraged by Broad's directive, and decides to treat it as a part of his training regimen. The food is so delicious that he clears the entire banquet and heads to Broad, who then shows him to his room. Despite being exhausted, Lucille finds himself unable to sleep and decides to utilize this time to practice his healing magic, like his routines at the Healers Guild. He persistently trains his magic and meditates for 3 hours until sleep eventually beckons him. The next day, Broad presents him with another breakfast feast and introduces him to Gulgar, the guild cook. Lucille is intrigued by Gulgar's hulking, bear-like figure and inquires about his race. Gulgar reveals that he is a wolfman and serves Lucille an odd beverage, claiming it to be a concoction from the Sage of Time. The drink, Substance X, has an off-putting taste reminiscent of a garbage can's contents, yet it promises to enhance his muscular strength, endurance, and reflexes. The deterrent, however, is that no one willingly drinks it for the strength benefits. Lucille, undeterred by the horrendous taste and smell of Substance X, gulps it down in one go under Gulgar's watchful gaze. He feels a sudden surge of energy coursing through his body. Gulgar, stunned by Lucille's drinking the disgusting drink, encourages him to finish his meal and join Broad. Lucille devours the meal with newfound energy as Gulgar is still in shock at his tolerance for Substance X. Lucille's training progresses at a rapid pace over the week, but he still struggles to land a hit on Broad. One day, while Lucille is down in their sparring match, Broad sternly advises him to rise, warning him of his bleak survival chances against even the weakest monsters if he fails to do so. Inspired by Broad's harsh advice, Lucille rises to his feet, addressing Broad as his instructor. This motivates Broad, who intensifies the training with a barrage of punches. Broad guides Lucille to think strategically, emphasizing that each strike serves a purpose and that his survival hinges on his ability to observe, think, and learn quickly. Their training session is interrupted by the arrival of a catfolk girl seeking healing. She inquires whether the treatment is indeed free of cost, before revealing a wound on her back inflicted by a were-rat. Lucille heals her, but advises her to visit a doctor to ensure that she isn't infected. The cat girl is moved to tears by Lucille's gentleness, causing him to worry that he might have done something wrong. Their conversation attracts the attention of the cat girl's party leader who, upon learning that Lucille treats both humans and beast folk with equal care, praises Lucille for his compassionate attitude. The leader asks if they could return for treatment in the future, to which Lucille agrees. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the cat girl hugs Lucille, while the party leader expresses his admiration for Lucille's resilience in enduring Broad's rigorous training. After the party departs, Lucille heads to the cafeteria for his meal, only to be confronted once again by Gulgar and his dreaded cup of Substance X. Under Gulgar's stern watch, Lucille has no choice but to consume the awful concoction. He retires to his room afterward but feels an unsettling sensation of being watched. His days are consumed with 12-hour training sessions, gigantic meals, and nighttime magic practice, and he doesn't understand the sudden interest people are showing towards him. When he brings up his concern to Broad and Gulgar, they both seem evasive. Lucille deduces what's going on and confronts Broad about having people watch him. Broad admits and apologizes, explaining that he doesn't want Lucille to flee. Broad elaborates that adventurer, due to their dangerous jobs and lack of education, aren't well off. If they sustain injuries and cannot work, they won't be able to survive, driving them to take on even riskier tasks. Lucille understands that adventurers can only get treatment if he is present, and they now depend on him to survive. Lucille commits to fulfilling their 1-month deal and asks Broad to trust him. Broad accepts and agrees to stop the surveillance. Lucille threatens that if he catches anyone spying on him, he will take that person to the kitchen and force them to drink Substance X. He then extends the threat to Broad, reminding him that as the leader, he will be held accountable and forced to drink it as well. A month flies by rapidly, and Lucille notices that he is receiving more social interaction. His training also evolves, focusing on his throwing abilities. He hurls a pebble at a target, but Broad criticizes the throw for lacking strength and accuracy. Lucille contemplates when his training will advance to throwing weapons, but he realizes that mastering such a skill in a month is unrealistic. Aware of the long road ahead, he commits to training under Broad for the next 3 weeks to ensure his survival in the real world. Throughout the last month, Lucille's daily doses of Substance X have increased in size, and the number of requests for his healing services has skyrocketed. As the last day of their agreement approaches, Lucille expresses his gratitude to Broad for his guidance and help over the past month. He plans to return to the Healers Guild to find work, in the hope that he can rehire Broad when he has saved enough money. Broad is surprised to hear of Lucille's financial constraints. Lucille clarifies that he needs to cover his Healers Guild fees to continue as a healer. Broad inquiries about what Lucille would do if someone provided him with the funds to pay his fees for an entire year. Lucille would, of course, use the money to hire Broad and continue his training. To his surprise, Broad presents Lucille with a bag of coins, claiming it to be his reward for a month's training and for saving the lives of adventurers. Broad tells Lucille that it's only 12 silver coins, enough to cover his Healer Guild fees for a year. Broad encourages him to accept the money, stating that Lucille's martial arts skills are still undeveloped, barely better than a random child's, and that he will need to continue his training. Lucille accepts Broad's generosity and heads out to settle his Healers Guild fees. Lucille, moved to tears, promises that he will indeed return. At the Healers Guild, Lucille pays his fees for a year. Monica, the guild staff, questions his decision, as a potential increase in his healer rank would mean an additional fee. Lucille replies that he isn't concerned with his rank now, but rather his ability to stand on his own. Monica accepts his answer and remarks that opening a clinic would require a hefty sum of money. Lucille assures her that he will seek a rank promotion once he has amassed enough money. Returning to the Adventurers Guild, Lucille is greeted by Broad. Broad, who Lucille suspected had been waiting for him, tries to pass it off as a mere coincidence and instructs Nanaella to renew Lucille's adventurer card. Lucille is surprised that they don't need his consent for this, but Broad disregards his protests and whisks him away to the training hall, insisting they don't need to worry about a contract. After an intense training session, Rod presents Lucille with a book, a low-level holy magic tome. Broad explains that the gift is a treat for Lucille, who has returned home in time. Lucille initially feels as though they are treating him like a child, but Broad clarifies that a true healer requires both a healing spell and a detoxification spell. Lucille acknowledges their support and vows to train even harder. Gulgar arrives with another dreadful dose of Substance X. Lucille downs it in one gulp, causing Broad and Gulgar to stare in disbelief. But Lucille is resolved. He promises himself to knock Broad down within a year as revenge for making him drink the dreaded Substance X. The sun rises, and it's another day of training as Broad and Lucille team up once more. To Lucille's surprise, Broad suggests giving him a day off, something he hasn't had since he began his training. This leaves Lucille feeling a bit confused about what to do next. However, Broad comes up with an interesting idea. He recommends that Lucille learns how to butcher some monsters. Though puzzled, Lucille understands that it's essential to get familiar with these creatures. With that in mind, Lucille sets out on his off day, strolling down the hallway until he reaches the cafeteria where the butcher, Gala, awaits. Strangely enough, Gala bears an uncanny resemblance to Gulgar, the chef. They prepare to start the butchering process, and to Lucille's amazement, Gala pulls out a massive boar from a tiny bag. Lucille can't wrap his head around how such a huge thing could fit inside such a small bag, but Gala laughs and explains that it's a magical bag. With patience and care, Gulgar guides Lucille through the step-by-step process of butchering the boar, even explaining the logistics of transporting the meat. But then, he looks at Lucille with a meaningful expression and reveals that butchering isn't the only reason Broad sent him there. As the butcher's place boasts a wide variety of monsters, Lucille soon learns that he's here to discover their weak points and the best ways to attack them. The mere thought of fighting real monsters sends shivers down Lucille's spine. You see, Lucille is skilled as a healer, but the idea of facing these creatures in combat terrifies him. However, Galga kindly explains to Lucille that his presence has made a significant difference. Since Lucille arrived, the fatality rate among adventurers has drastically declined. Hearing this, Lucille feels a sense of pride in his accomplishments. To continue their lesson, Gala surprises Lucille by pulling out a horned rabbit beast from his magical bag. This sight freaks Lucille out a bit, but he tries to keep his composure. Although it's already dead, Lucille can't help but feel hesitant as he touches the raw meat. The reality of this process sinks in. It's an essential part of life, even if it makes him uneasy. Deep down, he knows that understanding these creatures better will ultimately benefit everyone, and this thought brings him a sense of calm amidst his initial discomfort. Later in the evening, after a day of butchering, Lucille is utterly exhausted, slumped at the bar. Gulgar, noticing his smelly clothes, advises him to change. Lucille steps outside to wash his clothes, and he's approached by Nanaella, who seems genuinely concerned about his well-being. However, as tired as he is, Lucille can't help but imagine Nanaella as the very bunny he had just dissected earlier. It's a bizarre thought that leaves him feeling a bit unsettled. Despite his uneasiness, Nanaella takes hold of Lucille's hand and offers him comfort, understanding that the day must have been tough for him. She explains that even for seasoned adventurers, slaying monsters without hesitation can be incredibly difficult. Lucille finds solace in knowing that Nanaella feels the same sense of remorse as he does. Later in the night, Lucille blesses his meal, a dish made out of the rabbit beast he had butchered earlier. As he enjoys his food, all seems to be going smoothly until Gulgar approaches him with yet another cup of Substance X. The next day, Broad surprises Lucille with another rest day, and he finds himself pondering how to spend it. Lucille notices that the stronger he becomes, the harder it is to level up, just like in a role-playing game. Lost in thought, he turns a corner and is suddenly grabbed by Nanella, Manila, and Meryl, who have decided to teach him a lesson. With playful determination, they led him down the hall and into the library. In the library, sitting at a table, the girls present Lucille with books on monsters, armor crafting, laws, religions, food mythology, and medicine. Lucille wonders if delving into all this knowledge is truly necessary. However, he decides to start with books on monsters, which seems to disappoint the other two girls as they get up and leave him alone with Nanella. He worries that Nanella might get into trouble for spending too much time with him, but she smiles and reassures him that it's part of her job to assist him. Nanella points out different places on the map and explains who manages what. Lucille is surprised to learn that the country he's currently in is the only one that has abolished slavery. From that point onward, Lucille dedicates his rest days to studying, balancing between training, learning from books, and completing various errands. As a year and a half passes by, Lucille becomes noticeably stronger and more muscular. He proudly holds the guild's earning ranking high while examining the monthly rankings, where the lineage of the White Wolf sits at the top again. As the girls playfully press up against him, Lucille feels a bit embarrassed and politely asks them to back up, resulting in a playful tickle session. They notice that his clothes no longer fit, so they decide to go shopping for new ones. Lucille compliments Nanella on her outfit, as he isn't used to seeing her in street clothes. Together, they hit the shops, trying on a wide variety of outfits. Lucille expresses his gratitude to Nanella for paying for everything, but she surprises him by explaining that Broad gave her the money to spend. Out of the blue, a woman begins to scream, and Lucille runs toward where the sound came from. He was shocked to see Monica lying in a pool of her own blood. Later that night, Monica regains consciousness, finding herself in the guild with Nanella and Lucille by her bedside. She has no recollection of what happened, and Lucille explains that he tried to cast heal on her, but it had no effect, so he had to resort to using cure for her recovery. Nanella speculates that it might have been the work of a mercenary, leaving Lucille wondering who could have paid to poison Monica. Monica shares a distressing story about how healers can be ruthless, mentioning a friend who got sold into slavery because she couldn't afford to pay for the services of the person who healed her. Public objection to the healer's actions could have led to the attempted assassination. Lucille is concerned that they might try to poison Monica again, but she reveals that she suspects Bataculi to be behind the attempt. Nanella informs Lucille that Bataculi runs the largest healer guild in the country. Lucille advises Monica to hide out at the Adventurers Guild until the situation calms down. Despite the tense relationship between healers and adventurers, Lucille reassures Monica that she will be safe there. In the cafeteria, Lucille is deeply concerned about the value of life in this world. He makes a promise to himself that he will continue to work hard until he becomes strong enough to make a difference. Monica walks in, looking pale, and expresses her gratitude to Lucille for his help. She asks how much she owes him, but Lucille insists that she has already done enough for him, and he is merely returning the favor. He kindly offers her some food, which touches Monica deeply, and she is surprised by the kindness shown by everyone in the guild. The man responsible for attacking Monica is eventually apprehended about a month later, but they never discover who hired him. Monica decides to stay at the Adventurers Guild and work there instead of the Healers Guild, a decision that fills the guild members with joy and cheer. 2 months later, Broad bursts into the guild looking for Lucille, which surprises him. Broad urgently informs him that there are adventurers close to death after being attacked at a coal mine in the southeast. Lucille and Broad rush to the injured party located at the inn. When they arrive, Lucille is shocked to see the extent of the injuries, with many people laid out in pain. Guided by Broad, Lucille attends to Basura, who is the most severely wounded. Despite the difficulty, he manages to save Basura using multiple healing spells. As he attempts to move on to the other injured adventurers, he becomes weak due to his low HP. Broad quickly provides him with a magic potion, which restores his strength. Lucille then begins to heal everyone in the room, but the exertion takes a toll, and he eventually passes out. The next day, Lucille wakes up to find Nanella by his bedside, fast asleep in a chair. He feels a sense of relief knowing that he managed to save 3 members of the lineage of the White Wolf, but he can't help feeling sorrow for the inevitable deaths of the others. It's a reminder of the harsh reality they face as adventurers in this world. With tears in his eyes, Lucille becomes even more determined to work harder than ever before. As a year passes, Lucille takes a moment to reflect on his growth and achievements. He looks over his stats, feeling a swell of pride in how far he has come. His hard work and dedication have paid off, and he now stands stronger than ever, both in skills and character. He now sports a long ponytail, symbolizing his growth and evolution. After their final battle, the great hero and the Demon King lost all their powers. Time passed, and Blade enrolled at Rosewood Academy with one goal in mind: to make friends and live a normal life. Blade becomes friends with Ernest, the top student, as he helps her break a curse. He also befriends Sophie, a mock version of himself created to be a replacement great hero. With that, our episode comes to an end. Feel free to comment if you're interested in following more of this exciting series. Thanks for your time. If you stayed until the end, please like and subscribe for more.